What's up everybody, we're back with another raid guide, and today we're taking a look at Drest'agath on Mythic difficulty. I'll be going over most of the mechanics, how to deal with them, and our overall tactic for this fight. For this encounter you want 2 tanks, 3 healers, and 15 DPS. Depending on your overall DPS and gear when you approach this fight, you could possibly drop a DPS for another healer. Setup wise, dots and range cleave are to prefer, so Destrolox, Shadow Priest for example, perform extremely well on this encounter. Strong single target damage for the boss itself is very important. The more damage they can put out during the 30 seconds DPS windows, the better. So Combusty Fire Mages are great for that. I wouldn't recommend bringing more than 6 melee DPS for this encounter if possible. Now, with that said, let's check out what's new on Mythic. The new mechanic or addition to is something called Throes of Dismemberment. Appendages of Drest'agath upon death trigger all other appendages of the same type to cast either Errant Blast, Reality Tear, or Spine Eruption. So pretty much if you kill a maw, every other maw still up will cast Spine Eruption. Kill an eye, every eye starts casting Errant Blast, kill a big tentacle, and all other tendies cast Reality Tear. Not much to do about this, just dodge as they happen. Other than that, all the numerical values have been increased significantly, there's more appendages than on normal or heroic, and the DPS check is very high for this encounter now. And unlike normal and heroic, when and in what order you kill the appendages actually matters a lot. So I'll be going over the fight a bit, followed by our kill order step by step. I will also post our kill order and debuff order in the description below. I've seen a few different approaches to this fight, mainly when to pick up the voidy orbs in order to actually damage the boss, since almost all damage you deal to it without it will be healed up. The most common approach that I've seen, and the one we went for, means killing off several appendages roughly at the same time, so multiple DPSers, if not all, can nuke the boss at the same time. Due to this, the fight becomes fairly scripted as long as you know what to kill and when to pick up the buffs. Since you necessarily don't want to pick up the buff as often as you can, since you want to combine it with cooldowns. Some orbs might get wasted, which is fine. The important part is getting the orbs on multiple DPS at the correct timings. Tanks and healers can pick up any other orbs if and when it's possible. For most of the fight, your ranged DPS and melee will be split between adds. Melee will mostly be dealing with the big tendies and eyes if there are any near them, and range will mostly be dealing with eyes and maws around the room. And because of the void miasma around the big tendies, you'll want one healer to follow the melee around and take care of them whenever they're nuking them. Paladins are great for this since they pretend to be melee most of the time anyways. Ranged DPS should be loosely spread in whichever area you're currently nuking down appendages in due to the acid splash from the maws. Be mindful of your surroundings so you don't stray too far from the rest of the raid. It might seem like a good idea to move away a bit to spread and to reach a far away ad for dots, but odds are you're outranging your healers and you're just going to die. I believe where the hell is X or Y player was dropped a lot during our progression until players were comfortable with the movements and kill orders. So just a tip. Other than that, this fight all boils down to kill order. So with that said, let's go over just that. On pull, you want to bring the 2 eyes down to around 10-15% HP, then move on to the big tentacle that spawns near the boss. Tanks should immediately debuff this tentacle and the eye next to it. You want to kill off the big tendie and the 2 eyes that you left on 10% roughly at the same time and before the void glare cast. This will give you 12 DPS buffs to pick up. Pick these up, pop Bloodlust and full nuke on boss. Any DPS without a buff should start working on the eye that's left and the maw near the entrance. The buffs that the eye drops should be used by the DPSs that didn't get a buff from the original 12 ones. And the ones from the maw when it does die can be picked up by tanks and healers if possible. As soon as the initial 12 DPSers buff runs out, all of them should move on to the next big tendie. When this is down, melee move on to the third big tendie and range start working on the 2 maws near the boss. When melee finishes off the third tendie, they move on to the 4th one around the entrance, and range finish off maws and the eye next to the 4th tendie. And you want the tendie, eye, and the 1 or 2 maws to die at the same time here. DPSers again pick up all the buff orbs and start nuking the boss. There should only be 1 maw up at this point in the far back. Following this burn, you will have 3 eyes, 2 maws, and a tendie up. The 2 maws that are up will be right next to each other, so range should focus on getting these downs. Melee should start working on the tendie that's up with 2 eyes next to it. When the maws are dead, range swap over to the eyes that are next to the tendie, and you want to finish off these eyes and the tendie at the same time, pick up buffs, and again start nuking the boss. You should only have 1 eye up at this point. Following this burn, you'll have 2 tendies, 2 maws, and 2 eyes. Melee should focus on the tendie near the entrance and range on the eye and maw closest to the entrance. When these are down, melee move to the tendie in the back and range the maw and eye that is near the boss. Finish these off at the same time, pick up buffs, and again nuke boss. A side note on these, you want to finish off the aforementioned tendie before the new appendages spawn, because this overlaps with Entropic Crash. So if it's not dead, you will get a triple tentacle crash, quad if you count in the boss, so you want to avoid that. Anyways, following this burn, you have 2 tendies, 2 eyes, and 2 maws. 1 eye and maw spawns close to each other near the tentacle that's a bit further away from the boss. Raid stacks between them and kills both, while melee kills the tentacle near the boss. Goal is to kill the stacked eye and maw and the tendie at the same time, pick up buffs, and finish the boss. At this point you can ignore the far away eye and maw, and if boss isn't dead by the time your buff runs out, it should be left around 5% or lower. Finish off the last tendie, and whichever DPS that can should pick up the orb, and everyone else just nukes the boss. You can nuke down the last percent even without the buffs, as the heal isn't instant. And that's pretty much it. I didn't want to go into too much detail about dodge this at this timer or things like that, because it's mostly about reacting and dodging. Entropic crashes should be outranged if you're ranged, and melee should run out from tentacles during it as well to minimize damage. You can use things like barrier, link, etc. on tentacles during crash so you don't have to run out, or if you get crashes with multiple tentacles up. Eye lasers should just be dodged, and the same with spines whenever they're being cast. But other than this, it's mainly about finding a kill order that works and not falling behind on damage. We did fall behind a lot on our kill, mainly due to a missed combustion during Bloodlust due to me accidentally picking up one of the buffs from the very first eye, leaving one of our mages very, very sad. Shit happens. But with that in mind, it is very important that the correct players get the buffs when they need it. Another great example for this is if you see someone channeling the Ashara trinket font of power next to an orb, don't joink it in front of them. They will be less than happy. And as far as debuffing the ads goes, I will write it out in the description below, or you can also ask me on Facebook or Discord for it. But this fight is really about not falling behind and killing the correct tentacles, or appendages rather, at the correct time. To go back to the part where I stole a Fire Mage combustion orb instead of him nuking the boss, which made us fall behind a lot. We still managed to kill it, but we literally brute forced the hell out of the last 20% to make that happen. So that is why you want to avoid it. It is not to be recommended. And with that said, if you have any questions or run into any issues during your progression, hit me up on Facebook or become a Patreon. As a Patreon, you will get access to my Discord, where you can find things like weak auras, healing notes, or the kill order for this fight, and a ton of awesome people helping each other out during progression, and it's also the fastest way to get a hold of me. And as always, if you like this video, hit that subscribe button, leave me a like, and ring that notification bell. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time.